What's up, Rad Dads? Welcome back to another episode of the Rad Dads podcast, hosted by none other than the two raddest dads on the East Coast. I'm Sal.
And I'm Rob.
Tonight we have a special guest with us, not in studio, but virtually. Ed Paat. Ed Paat's the executive director of Central Carolina's chapter at A Kid Again. A Kid Again is a national nonprofit providing free year-round adventure for children with life-threatening conditions. Ed has more than 16 years of nonprofit experience, previously serving the roles at Catherine's House, Carolina AGC, and the Able Trust. Ed holds a master's degree in public administration with a specialization in nonprofit management from Clemson University. Ed, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a great pleasure. I appreciate it very much.
Co-host here put together a very eloquent intro. Is there anything you want to add to that? Add a little bit more background on it?
I think it's I think it's very important to mention that my undergrad was from Florida State University, and so we are diehard Seminole fans in this house. So even though I did attend the state the university that wears the orange, we're diehard Seminole fans in this house.
That's very important.
It's very important. It's very important.
Earlier. So, how many kids do you have, and what are their ages?
So my wife and I have 4 kids. We have 2 girls, 13 and 11, and then 2 boys that came after that, and they're 7 and 4. So our household is never dull. There's never a dull moment in this household. I am, as we speak, holed up in a closet. Because I feel like this is the only place I can in the basement, because it's probably the only chance I can get to have some quiet without, having some, kids screaming in the background or something like that. So trying to be a good guest.
Did you have to park your car around the block just to make sure that the kids, if they look out the window, they know daddy's not home? You're hiding in the basement.
No. Luckily, it's not that. But I did have to find the furthest closet away from the bedrooms section of the house, and so that's how we ended up here.
Wow, 4 kids. That's amazing. How were the dynamics with the kids? Because I have 3 kids. I got 3 girls, and after our 3rd child, my wife and I actually strongly considered a 4th. We were going to adopt, because 3 is an odd number. If two of the girls are playing with each other, they're leaving the 3rd out. So we were going to consider having a 4th. So, there's pairs.
Yeah. It's, I think it all depends on their personalities. And so the oldest 2, both being girls, they are polar opposites. And so it's like oil and water, trying to put those 2 within 10 feet of each other. So, they don't get along great now, but I'm told, and I keep my fingers crossed on this, that they'll be, if they don't get along now, they'll be famously close when they get older, which is always what you want, to have happen. So, but the boys do get along famously. We have, the 7 and 4-year-old, they share a room, they've got bunk beds, and no issues out of them putting the 2 together. But when the girls get together, it's usually a pretty interesting dynamic that exists.
So that's when that's when you see the fireworks.
Oh yeah, lots of fireworks, lots of opportunities for me to test growth, in my patience, or ability to bite my tongue in those opportunities, in those situations.
There's plenty of fireworks in my house. It's the 4th of July every day.
Yeah.
But it's all good. I wouldn't change it for the world. So how has becoming a father changed your life, and what has it taught you?
I think it immediately changes your life. I don't know that there's any way to prepare for the moment that your firstborn enters the world. You think you have an idea. One of the things that I always tell, the only piece of advice I ever give folks that are getting ready to have a child is don't read the books. Do not read that what to expect when you're expecting book, because it's literally like 500 pages of here's what can go wrong in the pregnancy. So you spend every week just terrified of all of the various what ifs that can happen. But the moment that your child enters the world, you've known this little thing for a minute, and you realize very quickly that you would, sacrifice anything for him or her. And so, I think it teaches you things, and I think it also, unfortunately, reveals things about yourself that you're not going to like, because it's an unending journey. It is, watching a child for a day is not near the same as watching a child every day, 365 days a year for 20 years or and then having multiples. So it's that consistency that tests your patience, or at least for me, is the consistency of that tests the patience. So it reveals for me a lot of things that I don't like about myself, or that I need to get better at, is, that the consistency of being a parent. But it does teach you selflessness, and it teaches you that you're going to love this human being more than life itself. And so it's the hardest thing you'll ever do and the best thing you'll ever do, I feel like.
Oh, I agree 100%. Definitely the hardest thing, and definitely one of the best things. But it's funny. Almost every guest that we've had on, they mentioned the book, What to Expect When Expecting. But
we all read it, but
yeah, absolutely.
You just sit there and, if, I didn't feel them kick today. Well, that could be one. It's like going on WebMD. Well, that could be one of 17 things, and all of them end in a very life-threatening, experience. So it's just a terrifying book, I feel like.
So that's one of the reasons why Rob and I started this podcast is because we want other dads to know that, we're going through the same things, and we want guys to talk and share their feelings and let them know that they're not alone, that this does happen, and there's no manual for us, there's no instruction manual. So. Well,
that's the other thing you learn about becoming a father, especially the first time, is there is no manual. And so on day 2 or day 3, they're like, all right, are you guys ready to go? And you're like, who's coming with us? Are you going to send us home with a manual? Like, what do I do? I've got this human being now that I'm responsible for that seems very fragile. And you're just going to let me walk out with them? And do you know how dumb I am, and how incapable I am of taking care of myself, let alone a new human being?
Was driving like 20 miles per hour from the hospital with my firstborn. I was like an old lady, 2 hands on the wheel. I never have 2 hands on the wheel. My wife's like, you can go faster. I was like, no, I can't. I gotta stay in the right lane. Hazards on. No one's gonna bother me. She was like, ridiculous. But it's exactly right. Like, 3 days, 4 days, however long, hopefully you're out of the hospital. Well, the natural birth is even quicker than that. But, you're out and you have this the first one's the wake-up call, but you have this small bundle of life. And it can't talk, and all it does is cry and poop. But you're head over heels in love with it. So it's such an eye-opening experience, and something like, I just think everyone should have the opportunity to experience if you want it. And I think about people, we always watch movies where people are like, oh, I'm going to be a bachelor for life. I want to, I want to do career. I want to be a bachelor. I want to party. Like, that stuff gets old. We actually went out Saturday night, and one of the guys made a comment. He's like, oh man, this is like back in the day, we at the club and it'd be shoulder to shoulder. I was like, those days are like way in my past. I said, coming out, having a couple bourbons, hanging out with the guys for like a couple hours. That's the extent of me going out at this point. Yeah. Like that's all I want to do.
A lot sooner.
I want to see my family next morning.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the night ends a lot sooner than it used to as well.
That's true. That is very true.
10 o'clock comes around, I'm looking at my watch. It's like, damn, it's late. I gotta go.
Yeah. Well, and the kids don't give you the grace on the daddy was out last night. they're getting up at 6, regardless of whether you went out last night and didn't get a good night's sleep or not. So you got to be prepared because they're coming no matter what.
That is true. That is very, very true. So how does being a father affect how you operate every day at a kid again?
That's a really good question. And I think one of the reasons I'm so passionate about our mission and I'm so, protective over the families that we serve is because I've had the experience of being a father and understanding how much you love these little human beings and what you would do for them. And, to this point, we've been very fortunate. We have 4 traditionally healthy kids. And so I can't imagine what the families that we serve go through as they walk through these life-threatening conditions. And some of them obviously more aggressive than others and lifespans that are shortened, but all of them are incredibly traumatic, and time, more time is involved and much more money is involved. It's all of the major life stressors, the worst nightmares you could possibly want, all kind of put together. And so as a parent, there's an empathy, there's an added, ability for me to put myself in these families' shoes and really want to serve them as best as we can, because I can't imagine what they're going through on a daily basis.
My youngest has dysgraphia and dyslexia. And it's very difficult, right? He's learning very slow. He has a hard time reading. He gets words. He can't remember words, which is a natural a side effect of that. And I always think man, this kid has it so rough. I thank my lucky stars for as much as he goes through. I'm happy that he's a healthy kid and he's going to, he'll be fine. It's really hard watching your kid, go through that. I can't even imagine watching parents who have terminally ill kids or, going through that. I have a friend who went through it and he's very open about it and he talks to me about it and he came on the show. He's one of our first guests. He wanted to give back because he's like, if you haven't experienced this and you're going through it, it is one of the toughest things. He actually lived down in North Carolina, South Carolina area. But he said it's one of the toughest things he's ever had to go through. But it's also one of the things where he feels he needs to impart what he learned and what he experienced with other parents because other people did that for him and it helped him to learn.
Yeah, it's the strength and the selflessness that we see within these families is really amazing. And that's one of the reasons why, for a kid again, one of the really major components that's really unique and really impactful is when we do things with all of our families. And so yesterday, for example, we took 1,500 members of the Akidigan family to the North Carolina Zoo. And so when they go together. And so they're building, because we do things on a regular, almost monthly basis, they're building these support systems within one another that they can lean on when times get tough. But the selflessness, there's so many times where we'll have a family who wants to enroll and we have to almost talk them into enrolling because they're afraid they're going to take somebody else's spot. They're afraid that, man, well, even though we have this life-threatening condition, there's probably somebody out there who's got it worse. And so if we sign up, then are we going to take somebody else's spot? And that's not ever the case with us. We don't put a limit on any of those things. But to your point, Rob, the selflessness that we see from families is really special. And it's sad, obviously, that families have to go through this, but the strength and the resolve that they have, is pretty remarkable.
It's amazing when you see the strength of the community and the support when everybody comes together. I lost my cousin a few months ago. He's 15 years old. We also had a little boy in town pass away from a disease, and it just how the community came together and just to support my cousin, just to support the little boy in town and his family. It was just. It's amazing. I get goosebumps every time I talk about it.
Yeah, we see similar things, Sal. I mean, that for as much as we see right now, and whether it's the media or the world and things that we don't like that are not positive, there is something remarkable about the way people will rally around a family when they lose a loved one, particularly a child. That everybody understands the grief and the loss and the pain of that. So, that's the one bright spot you think you can look at when you see something like that is that people will rally around that and they'll do pretty much whatever that family needs for them.
What challenges have you faced raising your kids?
How long do we only have 30 minutes, I think, right? That's what you said. It's, we said this earlier, raising a kid is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. There's any number, for me, it's, the work-life balance. And I'm sure you probably hear that and you guys go through that as well. You're in your own careers and then and doing this podcast and really trying to give back and all those things. And for me, it's, I'm really passionate, as I said, about the work that we do and the mission, of a kid again. And so there's times, especially and I found myself going through this, when we lose one of our kid again kids, and what we say is they earn their angel wings. When that happens, I find myself wanting to pour myself back into the work more, because we know with every adventure, there's going to be a number of our kids where this is their last adventure. That's just the nature of the population that we serve. And so there is a drive to make this next adventure as good as it can be, as perfect as it can be, so that they have that perfect adventure. And which is impossible. Nothing's ever going to be perfect because there's all sorts of variables that you can't control. But you do find yourself really wanting to push for that. And of course, the downside to that is you're sacrificing your own family life. And so what are you sacrificing? The benefits of your own family in order to do that. So that work-life balance has really been difficult for me personally. And of course, it's not necessarily only work life. When you have kids, the kids take a priority over your marriage in a lot of cases, right? Over your hobbies. So, there's a balance that goes completely out the door when the kids pop in. Now it's great. It's wonderful. But, I think that balance is one of those things. And then the other things that I face is each one of our kids has a different personality, and learning how to, speak to them in a way that, they will connect with and will impact them. Each in their own unique ways is a challenge, because I typically will be more direct and, just kind of matter of fact. But that works with one of my kids. It doesn't work with the other ones. With the other ones, you got to be a little bit more, you got to be a little bit different. So, that's a challenge that I take on, but I've got to get it right, because it seems small, but that's our relationship is dependent upon how I can connect with them and, and then how they grow up and things like that. So that's definitely a challenge that I battle every day.
That in itself, just, you're dealing with 4 different personalities. Well, essentially 5, because if you incorporate your significant other, it's 5 different personalities. So there has to be 5 different Eds, trying to figure out and properly, speak to each and every single one of your children and your wife. That definitely is a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one that I fail at continuously.
One of the things you just said was something me and my wife talk about all the time, is how we always put our kids first. Like we see other people, we see other couples, we see other families, like, they'll do stuff, and you have to keep the marriage, going. You have to, keep the relationship with your wife going. But one thing that me and my wife agree on 100% is we really probably will never go on vacation by ourselves. We always want the kids with us. Like, we're like, probably like a little bit too much, because we're like, all right, we feel better going on vacation, like, all together. Like, we don't feel whole without the kids. But we'll go to dinner without them, right? We'll do a night out, but like anything beyond that is like, and once a month, if that, is just like, we don't feel right. And the one night we go out, we're like out for like 2 hours, like, should we go home now? Like, what are we doing? But it's 100% right, is we've sacrificed even part of our relationship put our kids first because we feel that, there was a stat that Sal read in one of our previous episodes where, you spend by the time your kids are age 12, you've already spent 75% of the time you're going to spend with them. So every day I think about that stat since he said that. And I'm like, well, damn, I'm going to spend as much time as I can with my kids. I already see it in Sal has two daughters older than my oldest. But I already see it with my oldest where like he wants to go hang out with his friends. Like, and I'm like, no, why don't you come hang out with dad? We'll watch Star Wars, man. We'll watch, Lord of the Rings. And he's like, no. I'm like, come on, we'll go shoot hoops or we'll play, tennis. Just not interested. So, I'm willing to make that sacrifice now, and my wife is too, which is, I guess that's why we work. Because we're both of the mindset, but it's one of those things that we feel so adamant about it is like, by the time they're 18, like, they're gonna be on their own adventure. And that's, we, as parents, that's what we want to prepare them for.
Yeah, and I love that, Rob. I think it's a wonderful mindset to have, that you want to spend as much time with the kids as possible. I think that's a positive thing. And I think we're similar in that. And I'll also say that I won't say it's completely selfless, but trying to get a babysitter for 4 kids is not the easiest thing. So we typically have to go places with them because nobody will take them.
That is true. I never thought of that. Babysitter for 4 kids. You probably got to get 2 babysitters.
Yeah, it gets pricey.
Oh, I can imagine. So, Ed, what family traditions do you wish that for your kids to carry on to their families? Any traditions that you've started?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I wouldn't necessarily call them traditions. The first one is the Seminole tradition, right? I mean, I'm really trying to just bury my kid's head in being Florida State fans, and it's really difficult because we live here in South Carolina, in the Charlotte area, where everybody's a Clemson fan, and Clemson's doing great, and it's all great. And then, I'm trying to get my kids to be Florida State fans, and we're going 6-4 or 6-6 on the season. There's 30,000 people in the stands. And they're like, why would I, and so it's difficult, but I really am trying I'm looking at it because I'm looking at it 30 years down the road, and my kids having kids. And then me having 3 generations watching the game together or going to games together. I'm really trying to impart that Seminole legacy on them. But the other pieces that we really try and they're not really traditions, but really trying to make sure our kids, kind of, follow through on is the family connection and understanding that they're siblings and family has to stick together. And, there will be a day when I'm no longer here. Hopefully that's longer, not sooner. It's later than sooner. But at some point that happens, and you want to know that your kids have people looking out for them and they can depend on their siblings in any situation. And so trying to help foster the relationship between the 4 of them so that they are the tightest bond, is really important to us. And then the other piece that's really important to me, my father came to the United States from the Philippines in 1963. And so I am a first generation born American. And for my kids to understand the sacrifice that my father made, that my grandfather made in order to come to the United States and to build a better life for the family, and that they understand the sacrifice and that they take pride in carrying on that tradition of working hard, serving others, and advancing the family name one more level with each generation. So those are kind of the big 3 things that stand out to me.
That one thing, what you just said about carrying the family name on, you have 2 boys. When we had our 3rd daughter, after our 3rd daughter, I told my wife, I said, my last name is going to die with me. And she's like, well, don't think of it that way. Maybe our daughters will hyphenate or carry the last name as well. So it's, it's pros and cons about having boys and girls. Thanks, Rob.
True friend.
Yeah. Thanks, pal.
All right. So next up is our Rad Dad's Rapid Fire round. We'll get started. Favorite book?
Yeah, I saw this one. TV's my favorite book. I haven't read a book in years.
I like that. All right. So what's your favorite show on TV?
We watch a lot of we'll watch, Blackish. We'll watch, gosh, no, I'm gonna put this. We just watch old reruns like Seinfeld. Anything on Netflix that'll just rotate. Parks and Recreation, still The Office. Anything that'll just rotate through. It's just like mundane, mind-numbing, put you to sleep, background noise, basically.
Favorite food?
Steak. Good steak, medium rare.
Nice. Favorite sports team?
So Florida State, and then in the professional ranks, any of the Bay Area teams. When my family came to the U.S., they settled over in the Bay Area. And so the Niners, the Giants, the Warriors, the A's, any of those Bay Area teams we pull for professional.
Favorite vacation spot?
The mountains. We can get to the mountains in about 2 hours here, hour and a half. And to get up, especially this time of year, where you can get us a little bit cooler. The mountains for us works. We did our favorite vacation. We actually drove from here in South Carolina to Maine 3 years ago, and drove through New York and DC and Boston and did some stops. But we stopped in Maine and stayed there for like 5 days, and that was really fantastic.
Nice. Favorite dad moment?
The little moments. There's the little moments that nobody else catches. I think as us dads, that you see something, you see your kid do it, and you get really proud. I did have the opportunity to actually deliver my oldest boy, meaning like catch him as he's coming out. The doctor let me come around and catch him, which was a pretty crazy experience. And then I got a chance to baptize my oldest daughter. And both of those were really kind of, moments that you'll never forget. But it's those little moments, I think, that you see on a daily basis that make you chuckle when you replay it back in your mind.
Last question. Best dad joke?
I'm the least funny person in America, so I had to Google this. This is how unfunny I am. I Googled dad jokes, and one struck me. He said he said I had a kids meal at McDonald's today. He said, well, that kid's mom was really upset with me.
Definitely a dad joke. It's funny you said Seinfeld. So basically everybody knows what Seinfeld is, right? It's a TV show about nothing.
Yeah.
I think maybe we should create a podcast about nothing. What do you think, Rob? Just talking about random things. All right. So, there's probably a lot of families out there that either, have a child that have, an illness, or know somebody that has a child with an illness, a life-threatening illness. What can they do, and how can they get involved with A Kid Again?
The best way is just through our website, www.akidagain.org. We're on social media as well, so you can check us out there. But just going through the website, you can learn a whole lot about what our mission is, the types of conditions that we serve, the states where we're serving them. That's the easiest way. Any type of social media or the website.
And last question we ask all our fathers: if you can impart a word of wisdom to all the fathers out there expecting new fathers and seasoned fathers, what would it be?
Number one, don't read the book. We talked about that earlier. Don't read the book. But one of the things that parents, there's a lot of times that parents will ask, from a kid again, like, how do I get my kid to volunteer? I really want them to volunteer. How do I, get them to be, kind of in a serving mindset? And the best thing I always tell them is do it alongside of them. Model the behavior for your child that you want them to carry on. I mean, we can, there's lots of things we tell our kids and then we don't model that behavior. Well, which way are they more likely to follow? And so, and that's a lot of pressure on us as parents, but I feel like that's the most impactful way we can impart wisdom is to model that behavior and hope that they follow along in what they see from us. And I think that's probably the best thing I could ever tell anybody.
That is so true. 100% true. Not read the book, yes. And also modeling the behavior, absolutely. Our children are a product of the parents, 100%.
Yeah, I'm not a child psychologist, obviously. I went to Florida State. That's, they give those degrees out at halftime. I'm sure that there's somebody along the lines that's done some study that talks about the repetition, the generational repetition that happens from, what the behavior the parents model to the kids. I'm sure there's some correlation there.
That's really good advice. Ed, thanks so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. This was a great interview.
Yes, Ed, it was a pleasure. Sorry about that. I cut right into you.
No, I cut into you, Sal, and I was just going to say thank you so much. You guys are so easy to talk to. You're so much fun to talk to, and I love the purpose, the mission behind what you're trying to do, which is get dads to talk and talk about things that typically as men or as fathers we shy away from or embarrassed to talk about. But by doing so, we become better fathers, better men, better friends to one another. And that's important. I mean, we have to be past the point of where we've been for so many decades in terms of keeping it all inside. If there's anything we've learned through COVID and through everything that we've been going through, it's not healthy. Mental health is a real thing, and talking about it and seeking help and seeking advice and seeking wisdom and support is all very helpful. And this, I would imagine, goes a long way to encouraging others to do that.
I agree. It's part of the reason we started this, right? We felt that, just to your point, like, guys don't necessarily open up all the time. And we felt that, we can give back. We can get dads to talk and give their experiences and just learn from one another. So we're getting downloads, so it's working. Somebody's listening. So.
Ed, it was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you again for coming on.